Hey, thanks for checking out my video. Chris here from Meditations on the Tarot. Today I wanted to share with you a chapter from Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And the chapter that I wanted to share with you is called The Fraternity of the Rose Cross. Manly P. Hall, I'll read a quick bio. Manly Palmer Hall, March 18th, 1901 to August 29th, 1990, was a Canadian-born author, lecturer, astrologer, and mystic. He is best known for his 1928 work, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Over his 70-year career, he gave thousands of lectures, including 2 at Carnegie Hall, and published over 150 volumes. In 1934, he founded the Philosophical Research Society in Los Angeles, which he dedicated to the truth seekers of all time, with a research library, lecture hall, and publishing house. Many of his lectures can be found online, and his books are still in print. The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Hall became sufficiently known and respected as a lecturer, interpreter of the writings of ancients, and most useful and practical elements of classical idealism, that he successfully appealed through advertisements and word of mouth for funds to finance the book that became The Secret Teachings of All Ages, an encyclopedia outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolic philosophy, whose original cost of publication in 1928 was estimated to be $150,000, although the price of individual copies varied. According to original subscription agreement on file at the Philosophical Research Society, editions were sold by subscription for $75 on a pre-publication basis, but the price of this edition after delivery by the printer is understood to be $100. Under the subscription terms, $15 was due at signing of the agreement, and the balance of $60 in 4 equal monthly payments each. The H.S. Crocker Company of San Francisco agreed to publish the book if Hall could secure the interest of book designer John Henry Nash, who once worked as a printer to the Vatican. After The Secret Teachings of All Ages was published, Hall went from being just another earnest young preacher in the City of Angels to becoming an icon of the increasingly influential metaphysical movement sweeping the country in the 1920s. His book challenged assumptions that society's spiritual roots and made people look at them in new ways. Hall dedicated The Secret Teachings of All Ages to the proposition that concealed within the emblematic figures, allegories, and rituals of the ancient is a secret doctrine concerning the inner mysteries of life, which doctrine has been preserved in toto among a small band of initiated minds. That's the Secret Teachings of All Ages. And this chapter is called The Fraternity of the Rose Cross. Who were the Rosicrucians? Were they an organization of profound thinkers, rebelling against the inquisitional religious and philosophical limitations of their time? Or were they isolated transcendentalists, united only by the similarity of their viewpoints and deductions? Where was the House of the Holy Spirit, in which, according to their manifestos, they met once a year to plan the future activities of their order? Who was the mysterious person referred to as our illustrious father and brother, Christian Rosenkreuz? Did those 3 letters actually stand for the words Christian Rosicrucian CRC? Was Christian Rosenkreuz, the supposed author of The Chemical Wedding, the same person who, with the other 3 founders, founded the Society of the Rose Cross? What relationship existed between Rosicrucianism and medieval Freemasonry? Why were the destinies of these 2 organizations so closely interwoven? Is the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross the much sought-after link connecting the Freemasonry of the Middle Ages with the symbolism and mysticism of antiquity? And are its secrets being perpetuated by modern Masonry? Did the original Rosicrucian order disintegrate in the latter part of the 18th century? Or does the society still exist as an organization, maintaining the same secrecy for which it was originally famous? What was the true purpose for which the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross was formed? Were the Rosicrucians a religious and philosophic brotherhood as they claimed to be? Or were they avowed tenets, blind to conceal the true object of the fraternity, which possibly was the political control of Europe. These are some of the problems involved in the study of Rosicrucianism. There are 4 distinct theories regarding the Rosicrucian enigma. Each is the result of a careful consideration of the evidence by scholars who have spent their lives ransacking the archives of Hermetic lore. The conclusions demonstrate clearly the inadequacy of the records available concerning the genesis and early activities of the Brethren of the Rose Cross. The first postulate. It is assumed that the Rosicrucian order existed historically in accordance with the description of its foundation and subsequent activities published in its manifesto, the Fama Fraternitatis, which is believed to have been written in the year 1610, but apparently did not appear in print until 1614, although an earlier edition is suspected by some authorities. Intelligent consideration of the origin of Rosicrucianism requires a familiarity with the contents of the first and most important of its documents. The Fama Fraternitatis begins with a reminder that all of the world's goodness and mercy, and it warns the intelligentsia that their egotism and covetousness cause them to follow after false prophets and to ignore the true knowledge which God, in his goodness, has revealed to them. Hence, a reformation is necessary, and God has raised up philosophers and sages for that purpose. In order to assist in bringing about the reformation, a mysterious person called the highly illuminated Father CRC, a German by birth, descended of a noble family but himself a poor man, instituted the secret society of the Rose Cross. CRC was placed in a cloister when only 5 years of age, but later becoming dissatisfied with his educational system, he associated himself with a brother of the Holy Orders, who was setting forth on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. They started out together, but the brother died at Cyprus, and CRC continued alone to Damascus. Poor health prevented him from reaching Jerusalem, so he remained at Damascus, studying with the philosophers who dwelt there. While pursuing his studies, he heard of a group of mystics and Kabbalists abiding in the mystic Arabian city of Damcar. Giving up his desire to visit Jerusalem, he arranged with the Arabians for his transportation to Damcar. CRC was but 16 years of age when he arrived at Damcar. He was received as the one who'd been long expected, a comrade and a friend in philosophy, and was instructed in the secrets of the Arabian adepts. While there, CRC learned the Arabic tongue and translated the secret book M into Latin, and upon returning to Europe, he brought this important volume with him. After studying 3 years in Damcar, CRC departed for the city of Fez, where the Arabian magicians declared further information would be given to him. At Fez, he was instructed how to communicate with the elementary inhabitants, probably the nature spirits, and these disclosed to him many other great secrets of nature. While the philosophers in Fez were not so great as those in Damcar, the previous experience of CRC enabled him to distinguish the true from the false and thus add greatly to his store of knowledge. After 2 years in Fez, CRC sailed for Spain, carrying with him many treasures, among them rare plants and animals accumulated during his wanderings. He fondly hoped that the learned men of Europe would receive with gratitude the rare intellectual and material treasures which he had brought for their consideration. Instead, he encountered only ridicule, for the so-called wise were afraid to admit their previous ignorance, lest their prestige be impaired. At this point in the narrative is an interpolation stating that Paracelsus, while not a member of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, had read the book M, and from a consideration of its contents, had secured information which made him the foremost physician in medieval Europe. Tired but not discouraged, as the result of the fruitlessness of his efforts, CRC returned to Germany, where he built a house in which he could quietly carry on his study and research. He also manufactured a number of rare scientific instruments for research purposes. While he could have made himself famous had he have cared to commercialize his knowledge, He preferred the companionship of God to the esteem of men. After 5 years of retirement, he decided to renew his struggle for a reformation of the arts and sciences of his day, this time with the aid of a few trusted friends. He sent to the cloister where his early training had been received and called to himself 3 brethren, whom he bound by an oath to preserve inviolate the secrets he should impart and to write down for the sake of posterity the information he should dictate. These 4 founded the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. They prepared secret cipher language and, according to the Fama, a great dictionary in which all forms of wisdom were classified to the glorification of God. They also began the work of transcribing the Book M, but found the task too difficult because of the demands of the great numbers of sick who came to them for healing. Having completed a newer and larger building, which they called the House of the Holy Spirit, they decided to include 4 new members in the fraternity, thus increasing the number to 8, 7 of whom were German. All were unmarried. Working industriously together, they speedily completed the arduous labor of preparing the documents, instructions, and arcana of the order. They also put the house called the Sanctus Spiritus in order. They then decided to separate and visit the other countries of the earth, not only that their wisdom might be given to others who deserved it, but that they might check and correct any mistakes existing in their own system. Before separating, the brothers prepared 6 rules or bylaws, and each bound himself to obey them. The first was that they should take to themselves no other dignity or credit than that they were willing to heal the sick without charge. The second was that from time to time on forever, they should wear no special robe or garment, but they should dress according to the custom of the country wherein they dwelt. The third stated that every year upon a certain day they would meet in the house of the Holy Spirit, and if unable to do so, should be represented by an epistle. The fourth decreed that each member should search for a worthy person to succeed him at his own demise. The fifth stated that the letters RC should be their seal, mark, and character from that time onward. The sixth specified that the fraternity should remain unknown to the world for a period of 100 years. After they had sworn to this code, 5 of the brothers departed to distant lands, and a year later 2 of the others went their way, leaving Father CRC alone in the house of the Holy Spirit. Year after year they met with great joy, for they had quietly and sincerely promulgated their doctrines among the wise of the earth. When the first of the order died in England, it was decided that the burial places of members should be secret. Soon afterward, Father CRC called the remaining 6 together, and it is supposed that he prepared his own symbolic tomb. The Fama records that none of the brothers alive at the time of its writing knew when Father CRC died or where he was buried. His body was accidentally discovered 120 years after his death, when one of the brothers, who possessed considerable architectural skill, decided to make some alterations in the house of the Holy Spirit. It is only suspected that the tomb was in this building. While making his alterations, the brother discovered a memorial tablet upon which were inscribed the names of the early members of the order. This he decided to transfer to a more imposing chapel, for at that time no one knew in what country Father CRC had died, this information having been concealed by the original members. In attempting to remove the memorial plate, which was held in place by a large nail, some stones and plastering were broken from the wall, disclosing a door concealed in the masonry. The members of the order immediately cleared away the rest of the debris and uncovered the entrance to a vault. Upon the door in large letters were the words, Post ex annos petivo. This, according to the mystic interpretation of the brethren, meant, in 120 years I shall come forth. The following morning the door was opened and the members entered a vault with 7 sides and 7 corners, each side 5 feet broad and 8 feet high. Although the sun never penetrated this tomb, it was brilliantly illuminated by a mysterious light in the ceiling. In the center was a circular altar, upon which were brass plates engraved with strange characters. In each of the 7 sides was a small door which, upon being opened, revealed a number of boxes filled with books, secret instructions, and the supposedly lost arcanum of the fraternity. Upon moving to the altar to one side, a brass cover was disclosed. Lifting this revealed a body, presumably that of CRC, which, although it had been laid there for 120 years, was as well preserved as though it had just been interred. It was ornamented and attired in the robes of the order, and in one hand was clasped a mysterious parchment, which, next to the Bible, was the most valued possession of the society. After thoroughly investigating the contents of the secret chamber, the brass plate and altar were put back in place, the door of the vault was again sealed, and the brothers went their respective ways, their spirits raised and their faith increased by the miraculous spectacle which they had beheld. The document ends by saying, in effect, in accordance with the will of Father CRC, the Fama has been prepared and sent forth to the wise and learned of all Europe in 5 languages, that all may know and understand the secrets of the august fraternity. All of sincere soul who labor for the glory of God are invited to communicate with the brethren and are promised that their appeals shall be heard, regardless of where they are or how the messages are sent. At the same time, those of selfish and ulterior motives are warned that only sorrow and misery will attend any who attempt to discover the fraternity without a clean heart and a pure mind. Such, in brief, is the story of the Fama Fraternitatis. Those who accept it literally regard Father CRC as the actual founder of the Brotherhood, which he believed to have organized about 1400. The fact that historical corroboration of the important points of the Fama has never been discussed is held against this theory. There is no proof that Father CRC ever approached the learned men of Spain. The mysterious city of Damkar cannot be found, and there is no record that anywhere in Germany there existed a place where great numbers of the halt and the sick came and were mysteriously healed. Arthur Edward Waite's The Secret Tradition in Freemasonry contains a picture of Father CRC, showing him with a long beard upon his breast, sitting before a table upon which burns a candle. One hand is supporting his head, and the other is resting the tip of his index finger on the temple of a human skull. The picture, however, proves nothing. Father CRC was never seen by other than members of his own order, and they did not preserve a description of him. That his name was Christian Rosenkreutz is most improbable, as the two were not even associated until the writings of the Chemical Wedding. The second postulate. Those Masonic brethren who have investigated the subject accept the historical existence of the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross, but are divided concerning the origin of the order. Each group holds the society originated in medieval Europe as our growth of alchemical speculation. Robert McCoy, 33 Degrees, believes that Johann Valentin André, a German theologian, was the true founder, and he also believes it possible that this divine merely reformed and amplified an existing society which had been founded by Sir Henry Cornelius Agrippa. Some believe that Rosicrucianism represented the first European invasion of Buddhist and Brahmin culture. Still others hold the opinion that the Society of the Rose Cross was founded in Egypt during the philosophic supremacy of the empire, and that it also perpetuated the mysteries of ancient Persia and Chaldea. In his Anacleopolis, Godfrey Higgins writes, "The Rosicrucians of Germany are quite ignorant of their origin, but by tradition they suppose themselves descendants of the ancient Egyptians, Chaldeans, Magi, and Jamnaphis." The last was a name given by the followers of Alexander the Great to a caste of naked wise men who they found meditating along the riverbanks in India. The consensus among these factions is that the story of Father CRC, like the Masonic legend of Hiram Abiff, is an allegory and should not be considered literally. A similar problem has confronted students of the Bible who have found not only difficult, but in the majority of cases impossible, their efforts to substantiate the historical interpretations of the scriptures. Admitting the existence of the Rosicrucians as a secret society with both philosophic and political ends, it is remarkable that an organization with members in all parts of Europe could maintain absolute secrecy throughout the centuries. Nevertheless, the Brothers of the Rose Cross were apparently able to accomplish this. A great number of scholars and philosophers, among them Sir Francis Bacon and Wolfgang van Goethe, were both suspected of affiliation with the order, but their connection has not been established to the satisfaction of prosaic historians. Pseudo-Rosicrucians abound, but the true members of the ancient and secret order of the unknown philosophers have successfully lived up to their name, and to this day remain unknown. During the Middle Ages, a number of tracts appeared, purporting to be from the pens of Rosicrucians. Many of them, however, were spurious, being issued for their self-aggrandizement by unscrupulous persons who used the revered magic name Rosicrucian in the hope of gaining religious or political power. Yet I will now give the overwise world a paradox to be solved, namely that some illuminated men have undertaken to found schools of wisdom in Europe, and these for some peculiar reason have called themselves Frater Rosicrucians. But soon afterwards came false schools into existence and corrupted the good intentions of these wise men. Therefore the order no longer exists as most people would understand existence. As this fraternity of the Seculophili call themselves the Brothers of the Rosy Cross, so also will they in the Seculio Spiritus Sancti call themselves Brothers of the Lily Cross and the Knights of the White Lion. Then will the schools of wisdom begin again to blossom. But why the first chose their name and why the others shall also choose theirs, only those who can solve, who have understanding grounded in nature. Political aspirations of the Rosicrucians were expressed through the activities of Sir Francis Bacon, the Count Saint Germain, and Comte di Cagliostro. The last named is suspected of having been an emissary of the Knights Templar, a society deeply involved in transcendentalism, as Eliphas Levi has noted. There is a popular supposition to the effect that the Rosicrucians were at least partial instigators of the French Revolution. The third postulate. The third theory takes the form of a sweeping denial of Rosicrucianism, asserting that the so-called original order never had any foundation in fact, but was entirely a product of imagination. This viewpoint is best expressed by a number of questions which are still being asked by investigators of this elusive group of metaphysicians. Was the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross merely a mythical institution created in the fertile mind of some literary cynic for the purpose of deriding the alchemical and hermetic sciences? Did the House of the Holy Spirit ever exist outside of the imagination of some medieval mystic? Was the whole Rosicrucian story a satire to ridicule the gullibility of scholastic Europe? Was the mysterious Father CRC a product of the literary genius of Johann Valentin André, or another of similar mind, who, attempting to score alchemical and hermetic philosophy, unwittingly became a great power in furthering the cause of its promulgation? That at least one of the early documents of the Rosicrucian was from the pen of André, there is little doubt. But just for what purpose he compiled it still remains a matter of speculation. Did André himself receive from some unknown person or persons instructions to be carried out? If he wrote The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz when only 15 years old, was he overshadowed in the preparation of that book? To these vital questions, no answers are forthcoming. A number of persons accepted the magnificent imposture of Andre as absolute truth. It is maintained by many that, as a consequence, numerous pseudo-societies sprang up, each asserting that it was the organization concerning which the Fama Fraternitatis and Confessio Fraternitatis were written. Beyond doubt, there are many spurious orders in existence today, but few of them can offer valid claims that their history dates back farther than the beginning of the 19th century. The mystery associated with the Rosicrucian Fraternity has resulted in endless controversy. Many able minds, notable among them Eugene Philantius, Michael Meyer, John Hayden, and Robert Flood, defended the concrete existence of the Society of Unknown Philosophers. Others equally qualified have asserted it to be of a fraudulent origin and doubtful existence. Eugene Philantius, while dedicating books to the order, and himself writing an extended exposition of its principles, disclaims all personal connection with it. Many others have done likewise. Some are of the opinion that Sir Francis Bacon had a hand in the writing of the Fama and the Confessio, on the basis that the rhetorical style of those works is similar to that of Bacon's New Atlantis. They also contend that certain statements in later work point to an acquaintance with the Rosicrucian symbology. The elusiveness of the Rosicrucians had caused them to be the favorite subject for literary works. Outstanding among the romances which have been woven around them is Zonami. The author, Lord Byron Lytton, is regarded by some as a member of the order, while others assert that his application for membership was rejected. Pope's Rape of the Lac, the Comte de Goblis, by Abbé de Valers, and essays by De Quincey, Hartman, Jennings, Mackenzie, and others are examples of Rosicrucian literature. Although the existence of these medieval Rosicrucians is difficult to prove, sufficient evidence is at hand to make it extremely probable that there existed in Germany, and afterwards in France, Italy, England, and other European countries, a secret society of illuminated savants who made contributions of great import to the sum of human knowledge, while maintaining absolute secrecy concerning their personalities and their organization. And the fourth and final postulate. The apparent incongruities in the Rosicrucian controversy have also been accounted for by a purely transcendental explanation. There is evidence that early writers were acquainted with such a supposition, which, however, was popularized only after it had been exposed by theosophy. This theory asserts that the Rosicrucian actually possessed all of the supernatural powers which they were credited, that they were in reality citizens of two worlds, that while they had their physical bodies for expression on a material plane, they were also capable, through the instructions they received from the Brotherhood, of functioning in a mysteriously ethereal body, not subject to the limitations of time or distance. By means of this astral plane, they were able to function in the invisible realm of nature, and in this realm, beyond reach of the profane, their temple was located. According to this viewpoint, the true Rosicrucian Brotherhood consisted of a limited number of highly developed adepts, or initiates, those of the higher degrees being no longer subject to the laws of mortality. Candidates were accepted into the order after long periods of probation. Adepts possessed the secret of the Philosopher's Stone and knew the process of transmuting the base metals into gold, but taught that these were allegorical terms concealing the true mystery of human regeneration through the transmutation of the base elements of man's lower nature into the gold of intellectual and spiritual realization. According to this theory, those who have sought to record the events of importance in connection with the Rosicrucian controversy have invariably failed because they approach their subject from a purely physical or materialistic angle. These adepts were believed to have been able to teach man how to function away from his physical body at will by assisting him to remove the rose from the cross. They taught that the spiritual nature was attached to the material form at certain points, symbolized by the nails of the crucifixion. But by 3 alchemical initiations which took place in the spiritual world, in the true temple of the Rose Cross, they were able to draw these nails and permit the divine nature of man to come down from its cross. They concealed the process by which this was accomplished under 3 alchemical metaphorical expressions: the casting of the molten sea, the making of the rose diamond, and the achieving of the philosopher's stone. While the intellectualist flounders among the contradictory theories, the mystic treats the problem in an entirely different manner. He believes that the true Rosicrucian fraternity, consisting of a school of supermen, not unlike the fabled Mahatmas of India, is an institution existing not in the visible world, but in the spiritual counterpart, which he sees fit to call the inner planes of nature. That the brothers can be reached only by those who are capable of transcending the limitations of the material world. To substantiate their viewpoint, these mystics cite the following significant statements from the Confessio Fraternitatis. 1,000 times the unworthy may clamor, 1,000 times may present themselves, yet God hath commanded our ears that they should hear none of them, and hath so compassed us about with his clouds that unto us, his servants, no violence can be done. Wherefore now no longer are we beheld by human eyes, unless they have received strength borrowed from the eagle. In mysticism, the eagle is a symbol of initiation and the spinal spirit fire. And by this is explained the inability of the unregenerated world to understand the secret order of the Rose Cross. Those professing this theory regard the Count Saint-Germain as their highest adept and assert that he and Christian Rosenkreutz were one and the same individual. They accept fire as their universal symbol because it was the one element by means of which they could control the metals. They declared themselves the descendants of the Tubal-Cain and Hiram Habib, and that the purpose of their existence was to preserve the spiritual nature of man through ages of materiality. The Gnosis sects, the Arabs, the Alchemists, Templars, Rosicrucians, and lastly the Freemasons formed the Western chain in the transmission of occult science. Max Heindel, the Christian mystic, described the Rosicrucian temple as an etheric structure located in and around the home of a European country gentleman. He believed that this invisible building would ultimately be moved to the American continent. Mr. Heindel referred to the Rosicrucian initiates as so advanced in the science of life that death had forgotten them. And that's the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, and that comes from Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages. I think it's important to remember that that book comes from 1928, and that's been about 90 years now, so I think in that time that we've learned quite a bit. One important book for anybody that's researching the Rosicrucian history is Francis Yates' The Rosicrucian Enlightenment. And while Francis Yates got some of it wrong, she didn't get all of it right. It's a really great book to get you started. Another important book is The Rosicrucians, The History, Mythology, and Rituals of an Esoteric Order by Christopher McIntosh. And Willie Schroeder's A Rosicrucian Notebook, The Secret Sciences Used by Members of the Order. AMORC has their book, The Rosicrucian History and Mysteries by Christian Rabis. And this is really awesome. This has a lot of great alchemical artwork in it too, and tells a really great history. Really great book to have. And I think the best book probably to get on the history of the Rosicrucians from maybe a completely unbiased point of view would be The Invisible History of the Rosicrucians The World's Most Mysterious Secret Society by Tobias Churton. And he really spells out some of these things that are a mystery in this original story from 1928. Some of those mysteries have been solved, and he puts forth the idea that Johann Valentin Andre probably was the author of all three of the original Rosicrucian manifestos. So thanks for checking out my video. I appreciate you taking the time. If you could like, share, and subscribe, that'd be awesome. Help me get my YouTube channel off the ground. If you know a forum that you could post my video on, that'd be really, really great. Peace profound in LVX.